The Sixth Amendment guarantees the right to a fair trial by an impartial jury. But let's say that trial's about a woman, and let's say her name is Casey. And let's say she didn't report her toddler missing for 31 days. And let's say she lied repeatedly when questioned by authorities. And let's say that poor toddler ends up dead. And let's say the media has a field day. And let's say 15 years later, the media is still talking about this case. And let's say by media, I mean this show.
Sometimes the criminal justice system
It was more like guilty until proven innocent.
isn't all that just.
Which stage of sleepwalking involves murder? That's scary.
Of course it is.
You don't give up, do you?
I'm Jena Friedman, and this is Indefensible. Unless you were living under a rock in 2008 or not yet alive, you've probably heard about Casey Anthony.
Casey Anthony.
Casey Anthony.
Casey Anthony.
Live it up, Casey Anthony. Go ahead.
The 22-year-old mom from Orlando, Florida, whose daughter died under mysterious circumstances. So what really happened? And if she was as guilty as every TV pundit thought, how on earth was she never convicted? On July 15, 2008, Orlando police receive a frantic call about a missing child named Kaylee Anthony from Kaylee's grandmother, Cindy.
I found out my granddaughter has been taken. She has been missing for a month. Her mother finally admitted that she's been missing.
Okay, what is
here now?
Okay, what is the address that you're calling from?
When questioned as to the whereabouts of her daughter, Casey Anthony tells authorities that a nanny named Zanny abducted the child. When it turns out there is no Zanny the nanny, suspicion is cast over Casey.
No more lies. What happened to Kaylee?
I don't know.
You do know. What happened to Kaylee?
I don't know where she is.
It's not every day that somebody goes for so long without reporting their missing child.
Right. People magazine reporter and Orlando native Steve Helling.
Well, there was nothing that really stood out about Casey Anthony before the Kaylee Anthony death. Casey was that girl that everybody knows. The girl next door.
Who possibly killed her kid.
Yes.
On July 16th, a day after the 911 call, police arrest Casey Anthony and charge her with child neglect, making false statements to police, and obstructing an official investigation. And yet, still no one can find Kaylee Anthony.
Well, today, more than 150 volunteers joined forces with Texas EquiSearch in the hunt for 3-year-old Kaylee.
One of the things that makes this search difficult is that the person you think would be jumping up and down trying to give us information simply won't talk to us.
But thankfully, the media is there to get the word out.
So we put this on the People magazine cover just days after that 911 call. Suddenly, everything exploded.
Over the next 39 months, Casey Anthony's case was on the cover of People magazine 6 times.
That's the same number of times as Beyonce.
Are you including post-Lemonade Beyonce, or is this 2008 Destiny's Child Beyonce?
Beyonce.
5 months later, after an exhaustive search for the missing toddler,
The breaking developments today, human remains found within walking distance of the Anthony family home.
The skeletal remains found on December 11th are those of the missing toddler, Kaylee Anthony.
with crime scene evidence clearly pointing towards murder, it's not looking good for Casey.
Cindy Anthony reportedly called her daughter a sociopath.
There you see her doubling over, listening to news that remains were found near her home.
Forensic tests on Casey's car reveal the presence of chloroform and evidence of human decomposition.
As Casey awaits her trial from jail, the media has already convicted her.
Hundreds of people think that Casey Anthony is guilty of murdering her daughter.
Casey Anthony is guilty.
Casey Anthony is guilty. She's guilty.
There's always a concern in a high-profile case whether the media is, tainting the jury pool.
And the media is not just like some lone turd that can hide in the deep end. It is like the whole pool is contaminated.
By the time the media was done with it, there was not one single inch of the jury pool in Orlando that was untouched, that was unsullied, that was clean.
In fact, the potential jury pool in Orlando was so tainted by the onslaught of media coverage, jurors for her trial had to be pulled from across the state. But given how much the media was focused on this case, would any Florida jury really be impartial? 6 months after her initial arrest, pretty much the whole country assumes Casey Anthony is guilty. The thing is, her trial hasn't even started yet.
It's very challenging to find people who can be fair and impartial because of the attention that the case has gotten.
That's Jose Baez, Casey Anthony's defense attorney, who declined to speak to us. But he has a point. In a country where a trial by an impartial jury is a constitutional right, how does anyone with such a high profile in the media get a fair trial? That's where trial consultants come in. So what exactly do they do? Trial consultant Richard Gabriel.
We will help the attorneys do research, such as focus groups and mock trials, or conduct surveys, so they end up with a jury that actually is more receptive to their case.
You're like a yenta between attorneys and juries.
Yes, we sit down, we do a little matchmaking.
In fact, Gabriel has done a little matchmaking on over 1,000 cases, including Heidi Fleiss, O.J. Simpson, Phil Spector, and many other totally innocent people who just needed a less biased jury.
You're on a murderer's row of cases. I shouldn't maybe say murderer's row because that's too literal.
Correct.
So how did this arbiter of justice-ish end up consulting on Casey Anthony's case?
I got called by Jose Baez, and he had this massive case. Nancy Grace had done over 100 shows on how guilty this woman was.
I think it would be stressful to see 3 black garbage bags sitting beside you and see your mommy coming at you with some duct tape. That's stressful.
And he says, I am getting killed.
Maybe not the right word.
Yes. This trial started from the moment she was arrested and the cameras went on. The jury pool is seeing all this.
So Gabriel turns to a tool sometimes used among trial consultants, jury focus groups.
Normally, we'd like to do a focus group to find out how can we talk to people about this case. So since we didn't have any money, I knew a producer from CBS. And I said, if you fund a focus group, you can film it.
And is CBS like a charity that helps the wrongfully convicted?
CBS is the network, CBS.
Oh, CBS.
Yes.
Yes, Richard Gabriel got CBS to pay for a mock jury focus group on behalf of Casey Anthony's defense for being able to air the footage in a special that ran just a month before the trial. And what compelling footage it was.
Only Casey knows tonight's 48 Hours mystery.
Our focus group received a limited presentation of evidence likely to be argued by both sides of the case, including some of the forensic evidence and physical evidence. They listened to Cindy's 911 calls and heard about Casey's reported behavior.
And at the very end, I said, who here, based on everything you've heard today, plus whatever else you know about this case, would vote to acquit Casey Anthony of first-degree murder? Please stand up. Unfortunately. Okay. Yeah. With reluctance, I understand. Okay, great. And I said, well, what do you think happened? They went, we think it was an accident. We think she probably drowned.
I think it was accidental.
I think it was accidental. Maybe she was afraid that she would be accused of child abuse.
I don't think she intended to kill her.
She obviously has mental issues.
And so once they say this, then you take what they say and give it to the defense attorney, who then uses that information to inform the defense.
Right. And so then Jose, who was watching, says, okay, now I can talk to my experts more about the forensic evidence. And then, of course, it comes out in his opening statement that he said, yes, she fell in the pool.
The mock jury thought that she fell in the pool. Casey Anthony's attorney said she fell in the pool.
Defense attorney Jose Baez stunned the audience when, for the first time in 3 years, he alleged Kaylee Anthony died as a result of accidental drowning, not murder.
Kaylee Anthony died on June 16, 2008, when she drowned in her family's swimming pool.
Hypothetically, could the mock jury have come up with a defense on their own?
Yeah. I mean, they could have.
And apparently, Baez's potentially crowdsourced defense worked.
We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
Outside today's sentencing of Casey Anthony, protesters along with curious onlookers stood by to send a message demanding justice for Kaylee.
Let me just say, the devil is dancing tonight.
So did trial consultants help the defense land a not guilty verdict?
I like to think that I contributed, yes.
Did you get hate mail afterwards?
Yes, I've gotten hate messages, I got a death threat, I got, you know, and it sometimes happens.
You're like a female comedian on Twitter.
Exactly.
Richard Gabriel wasn't the only one who helped Casey Anthony achieve a not guilty verdict.
I had my own internal beliefs that this little girl was innocent.
Which one? The
Casey.
Kaylee or Casey? Casey.
Yeah.
Casey Anthony is found not guilty, and everyone is shocked.
Can't put it into words. It's so unjust. It's wrong.
She killed her child and she should not get out at all.
Well, almost everyone.
Casey appeared to me and sounded in her mannerisms as an innocent person.
Casey Anthony's other defense attorney, J. Cheney Mason.
Why do so many people believe that Casey Anthony got away with murder?
Well, I don't know how many people do.
Everyone but you. Having spent so much time with Casey Anthony, what would the public be surprised to know about her, other than that she didn't kill her kid?
That's a tough question. I don't know. I guess it would depend on what they came in thinking.
That she killed her kid.
That the public.
They would definitely come in thinking that she killed her kid.
Mason is a veteran Florida defense attorney who didn't like how the media was portraying the case, and Jose Baez.
The news was going out of their way to insult and crucify Mr. Baez without justification.
And because Casey Anthony's trial was a death penalty case, Baez welcomed Cheney's help.
Mr. Baez had to have a second lawyer who was death qualified.
I'm sorry, death qualified?
Yes.
What does it take to be death qualified other than a cloak with a hood and a scythe?
Prior experience plus special education seminars on death penalty.
With Cheney's expertise, among other things like an expert trial consultant, an unorthodox defense, and maybe even a lucky rabbit's foot, Casey Anthony is eventually found not guilty of murder. But one question remains.
Did Casey tell you what happened?
Well, I won't be telling you that.
If I guess, can you just nod? Or?
No, I can tell you with a certainty. Casey did not kill her child.
Did she drug her child and the child accidentally died?
That was just something that was created by people like Nancy Grace. She just thought she was clever to create Tot Mom.
Look at Tot Mom, Casey Anthony, Tot Mom, Tot Mom, Tot Mom, Tot Mom.
Tot Mom is not a clever moniker. I can think of so many others.
You undoubtedly are smarter than she is. You're certainly better looking.
Thank you. But I try not to pit women in the media against each other. Did you just wink?
I did.
All right. You did? All right. Okay, well, I'm in the position of power, and I don't want to exploit this dynamic, so I'll back off.
Apparently, Casey's not the only one who can charm legendary Florida defense attorney J. Cheney Mason. But now for the tough questions.
Do you know who Richard Gabriel is?
No.
So he's a jury consultant who
Yeah.
said that he worked on Casey's case.
There was no jury consultant in this case.
This seems to be a case of he said, which is my favorite type of case.
I'm gonna tell you one more time. I don't know Richard Gabriel. I don't know where he's from or what his coordination is. Never met me.
Can you talk about the mock trial of jurors?
A mock trial?
There was a mock trial of jurors assembled by the jury consultants who strategized about Casey's innocence or guilt.
I have no knowledge of when, where, how that would have been done.
You're pleading the fifth.
It didn't happen.
It didn't happen. CBS didn't pay for a mock trial.
Maybe this Mr. Gabriel helped some network with their own commercial efforts and stuff, and it had nothing to do with us.
Asking a defense attorney whether or not they used a focus group, is that akin to asking a celebrity whether or not they've had work done on their face?
Oh, I don't.
Little legislative nip and tuck.
Absolutely not.
Perhaps Mason really wasn't aware of Gabriel's CBS-funded jury focus group. Or maybe when it comes to performance-enhancing trade secrets, a defense attorney never tells. And maybe the jury wouldn't have found Casey Anthony guilty of murder regardless. But was anyone really expecting that verdict? On July 5th, 2011, Casey Anthony is acquitted of first-degree murder. The unexpected verdict leaves millions wondering, how could this have happened?
Boycott Casey!
Outrage as she walks. Outrage.
Justice for Kaylee!
There was a mountain of evidence pointing to guilt in this case.
Former Executive Vice President of HLN, Scott Saffon.
I was stunned that she was found innocent.
Saffon oversaw Nancy Grace's show at the time of the trial. In fact, under his tenure at the network, Nancy Grace's show achieved the highest ratings in HLN history.
That moment that the verdict was read and Nancy came on, we were, for that hour, we were the most watched television network of all.
How did that make you feel?
It finally hit me just how interested people were on this, that in that hour of the afternoon, we could amass an audience like this.
Do you think it's ethical for a network or a television show to have a verdict before a jury?
I feel like when you have a host of a show that's talking about the news from an opinion-based or from a personal perspective, you just have to know what you're getting.
It's like when you purchase a pack of cigarettes, it's clearly on the label that the cigarettes cause cancer.
Yes, I think that...
Would you say that Nancy's show is like a pack of cigarettes that could cause
I wouldn't say
societal
that.
cancer?
No.
I always thought it was a possibility that she would get off, and I wrote about it, that she could possibly get off. But then actually hearing it, I was surprised.
You didn't think it was gonna happen when you wrote about it for People magazine, that it might happen?
So there's two reasons I think that they failed. One is everybody knew about all the evidence ahead of time. Nothing surprising in the prosecution case. And the second reason is jurors saw this as a death penalty case. They really want to put this woman to death. So therefore, for them, I think it was a higher standard.
How did it feel when you heard that she wasn't convicted?
I had very mixed feelings. And when this case was over, it just was profoundly sad to me, just this whole situation. And I was with my daughter at the time that I heard it.
What does that have to do with anything? Just kidding.
At the end of the day, the prosecution was never able to prove what they had alleged, that Casey Anthony murdered her daughter, Kaylee. And unlike in the media, in the court of law, prosecutors must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that a defendant is guilty. And maybe we'll never know if the media circus around the case, which attracted some of the best trial consultants and defense attorneys in the business, helped contribute to a miscarriage of justice. But one thing is clear, it sure made a lot of people a ton of money, which begs a question, what am I doing wrong?
Hypothetically, if another true crime host wanted to be as successful as Nancy Grace, how would you market them to the public today?
My first question to...
Her name is Jena Friedman, hypothetically.
Okay, so I would say to Jena Friedman, tell me the story that's out there right now that you can't let go of.
Would she have to look a certain way?
I mean, the voice sometimes matters.
What if the person has like a slight lisp, like a slight speech impediment?
Yeah.
Would that make it harder for people to focus on what they were saying?
And a lot of times with people now, today, I will say to them, start with podcasting.
So you would tell like a Jena Friedman to start with podcasting?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Do you know who she is?
No, I don't know who Jena Friedman is. What does she focus on?
Well, she really cares about trial by media.
Uh-huh.
You know, the idea that anyone can have an opinion and blast that opinion out and influence people who are watching it just thinking it's news.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I'm not sure if that's.
How do you market that?
I think, yeah, I guess